video is about Jupiter in the Vedic system. So the first things first, that Jupiter is a Brahmin planet. Each planet is broken up into different castes because they tend to signify people of that caste as in they belong to that particular profession. That's how the caste system was decided in ancient India. Okay. So Jupiter is actually a Brahmin planet and a Sattvic planet and a fiery planet. Okay. So Sattvic, we've spoken about the three gunas: Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. And we've understood that how Rajasic makes things happen. Okay. Tamasic is more inertia, more dense, and Sattvic is very divine, right? So Jupiter is of course known as Brihaspati, the lord of, I mean, the guru of all the gods. Okay, so he's sort of got a chironic presence about him. He doesn't have a great wounding, but he has that sort of teacher, a mentor vibe to him. Okay, his beaches: Om Grang Green Grong Sa Guruve Namaha. 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 And if you chant this on Thursday, today is the day of Brihaspati. So in India, it is called Brihaspati Bar. Okay, that means the day of Brihaspati. So this is the day when you propitiate Brihaspati, because this is the day when his energies are most active. And I've explained to you time and again how everything is literally planetary rays. So if you manage to catch the correct planetary rays, you will be benefited by Jupiter on a Thursday. So on a Thursday, if you look, his directionality is northeast. So on a Thursday, if you look towards northeast and you chant Om Brang Green Om Grang Green Grong Sa Guruve Namaha. Okay, and his Vedic mantra is Devatana Mrishi Nancha Gurum Kanakasannivam Vandya Bhutam Trilokation Tam Namami Brihaspatim. Okay, and this is how you invoke him in the Vedic way. Okay, otherwise in the Tantric way, if you're doing Tantric Homa, you face northeast and you can chant 108 chants or 11 also, and put 11 offerings. Okay, like for instance, musur dal or gram dal. Okay, turmeric is very sacred, it's yellow because Jupiter's color is yellow, golden. Okay, even jaggery, even sugar, if it's brown, better. uh, Also laddus, which is this round sweets that Hanuman likes. Jupiter Brihaspati also likes laddus because they are yellow in color. Okay, so you offer 11 times. You may break the laddu up into 11 parts, and you may put some turmeric, you may put some fennel seeds, some some turmeric, some kumkum as well can work, and you can put 11 times in the fire facing northeast. Okay, this, if Jupiter is an operational malefic in your chart, this will greatly help you out. Okay, so what does Jupiter signify? What is he a karaka of? Okay, so in a chart, if you look at a woman's chart, Jupiter will always signify sons. Also for a man, sons, but for a woman, husbands, okay, father in law. Also the wealth that she will or he will accumulate, as well as the wealth of the spouse, also, okay. Guru, somebody who teaches you, somebody who mentors you. I just spoke about how Brihaspati himself is a guru, okay. So education as well. As a matter of fact, in Vedic astrology, if you have an exalted Jupiter, then you tend to have if you have an exalted Jupiter, then you tend to have an interest in astrology. Okay, so astrology is something that is again under the signification of Jupiter. Okay, so when someone's dharmic, dharma is a very important concept in Sanatan Dharma, in the Vedic Dharma. Okay, so Sanatan in the Dharma it is mentioned. I mean, the concept of Dharma is right living, doing correct things, operating correctly from a higher elevated understanding, not from an animalistic, low level vibration. This is what Jupiter is, okay? So, education, higher education, all kinds of education, our interest in philosophy, our interest in, religion as well, whether we are in fact religious or whether we are not religious, whether we believe in ceremonial magic or whether we don't, whether we want to do puja or whether we don't, that is very important to understand how Jupiter operates in the educational sphere. Okay, Mercury is also education, but Jupiter is the large scale education. Also, through travel, you can gain such education. Okay, knowledge of scriptures, when you want to learn about scriptures, that is also Jupiter. All kinds of sattvic gunas we have inside us, okay, all the goodness we have is also attributed to Jupiter. So if you are inherently a corrupt person and you truly want to bring about change, then Jupiter is the planet to invoke to bring about that change, to bring about that intelligence, so you may attune yourself to higher realities, to higher metaphysics. Okay, that's very important in Jupiter. uh, Nurturing the sattva guna, okay, as well as higher knowledge, jnana, scriptural knowledge, the Vedas, the tantras, all of this, right, is Jupiter, because it gives you all this, it transmutes the base into something higher. Okay, the tamas into rajas, and rajas finally into sattva, which is Jupiter, right? So, like it teaches you knowledge and removes you from ignorance. We say asato ma sadgamayo, tamaso ma yotirgamayo, mrityurma amritam gamaya. Okay, so take me away from darkness, take me away from falsities, take me away from indoctrination into something higher than just petty concerns and everyday interactions. So this is what Jupiter signifies. If you're looking for something, it's also deeply mystical actually, because it relates to the scriptures, and scriptures are after all allegorical tales of cosmic energies. So thereby all the sattva guna that we have inside of us, all the development of those higher qualities is Jupiter. So if you want to bring about change in what you believe in your morals as well, because Jupiter is morals. So if someone is trying to inculcate a moralistic life, then invoking Jupiter becomes absolutely mandatory, right? It's important because through this can you transmute the base into sattva, and that's so important for uh, higher knowledge, realization of the unitary consciousness. Okay, so as I said, cultivating all of this leads us to devotion, leads us to control over our base senses. Okay, so we can finally transmute all those base urges, right? So ultimately everything is a byproduct of that sattvic philosophy, Jupiter's philosophy. Once you start on that sattvic philosophy, all of this, ahimsa immediately builds inside of you. So you don't want to, steal, you don't want to corrupt, you don't want to, pervert something, you don't want to hurt anyone. You realize the subtle balances. And Jupiter is a benefic teacher. So his teachings are through, inculcating higher principles that ultimately brings about change, whereas Saturn is negentropy or negentropy, which blackens, right? So that's something. So devotion ultimately follows with this. Like I was saying, all of this good sattvic tendencies is a byproduct, really. So devotion, learning the scriptures, learning higher truths, a moralistic life, a heavy moral compass. So you can operate from a higher place whereby you can elevate other people. Okay, this is what Jupiter is. Sacrifice as well, because ultimately, once you realize that everything is not about you, you do want to sacrifice sometimes. That, okay, if this is for the larger good, then why not? Jupiter expands. So there's always this very expansive, nurturing exaltation as Cancer. So there's always this nurturing component to Jupiter, right? Almost a paternal, grandfather-like individual. Okay, so good virtues, prosperity as well, material prosperity. Uh, Jupiter is in fact associated with the Mahavidya Tara, and Tara is also extremely compassionate. Tara also means stars, right? So with Jupiter, there's a lot of compassion for all of us, sentient beings. Jupiter also signifies grandparents, by the way, and paternal grandparents. Okay, paternal, not maternal. Good virtues, like I've been harping on. Your interest in faith and how you look at faith. Are you dogmatic? Sometimes low vibration of Jupiter can be bigoted and dogmatic, or extremely self-assertive to the point of narcissism. This caricature can be seen many times in an imbalanced Sagittarius, when this extreme sense of independence and sense of philosophy is taken to an extreme end and perverted. So ultimately, what we were the sattva we were trying to achieve gets turned into tamas. And again, you must begin the whole process of alchemy, internal alchemy, right? So royal honors also, if higher level people are interested in you, that is because of Jupiter. So, few basic things: the sun and the moon and Mars are friends with Jupiter. Okay, Saturn is neutral. Mercury and Venus are enemies with Jupiter, and this I never quite understood. I used to, converse with my grandfather about this, that Jupiter and Venus actually have so much in common. They are the two benefics. Not only that, that Venus is exalted in Pisces, which is the home of Jupiter, which is, domicile ruler is Jupiter, because we are using traditional rulerships always in Vedic astrology. Navagraha. Okay, we do not take into account Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So we have the 7 traditional planets, and we add Rahu and Ketu to the mix. Okay, so it's almost like I'd never understood why Jupiter would be enemies with Venus. It did not make sense to me. Okay, Saturn neutral, right? Because they are. I think that this in the solar system, they're really really important, because Saturn is like the vizier, and there's actually a lot of astronomical importance to Jupiter, which I want to cover in a completely different video. But just to briefly touch upon it, without Jupiter, there would be no Earth. Because planets like Neptune, Jupiter's gravitational field is so strong that it makes Neptune stay away literally. Okay, otherwise Neptune would literally come as close to, I think, really close to Earth, okay, and possibly life could not exist. So Jupiter is very, very responsible for this little game that the sun is playing. Saturn is like his vizier. When Saturn must, bring down all of this information from the fixed stars or the nakshatras, ultimately, there are different lords of the nakshatras, but if you really cut it all down to base, it is Saturn's responsibility to bring down these rays. That is why Saturn is karma. He decides, actually, it's not as autonomous as we think. He doesn't just decide, but according to karma, and according to his karma as well, Saturn's karma, he manages and the karma, all the collective karma of different dimensions and different life forms, that we get the planetary ray according to vibration. Literally, that is as crazy as it is. So okay, so now we know that Jupiter lords over 2 signs in Vedic astrology. As I just mentioned, Pisces, of course, but also Sagittarius, right? That's his fiery diurnal home. right? And Pisces is a nocturnal water home, right? Pisces is watery energy, and Jupiter himself is fiery. So there's always this steam sort of happening with Jupiter in Pisces, okay, and that's where Venus finds exaltation, right? So okay, now we have exaltation is Cancer. 5 degrees of Cancer is exaltation of Jupiter. So if you have that Jupiter at 5 degrees of Cancer, you are extremely lucky. For you are a teacher like none other. I have an exalted Jupiter in Cancer, but in 11 on the 11th degree. So it's a bit different. Now, with regards to debilitation, of course, is the opposite of exaltation, which is Capricorn. 5 degrees is Brihaspati's debilitation. If you have that Jupiter there, that's where Jupiter is weakest, and you need to propitiate Jupiter. Okay. Now we have sex. Of course, Jupiter is male. He's Guru Brihaspati. He's male. Okay. And direction, like I've already mentioned, is north east. Okay, northeast. His stones that you need to wear are yellow sapphire, pokraj, uh, and golden topaz. Okay, which is you need to wear 4 to 6 carats at least in gold. Okay, now lucky numbers are 3, 12, and 21. So if a Thursday falls on one of these dates, 3, 12, or 21, and on that astrological hour of Jupiter, on the hora of Jupiter, you manage to chant Om Brang Green, Om Grang Green Krom Sa Guruve Namaha, then you may get the higher vibration of Jupiter. Okay, I mean, you will if you do it seriously. You need to wear yellow or golden. This is what Jupiter really likes, okay? Deities associated Indra, and nobody really worships Indra anymore. But Shiva, so Shivlingam Puja is very powerful for Brihaspati correction, okay? Brahma is the Lord. Brahma and Narayana both can be propitiated, but we know that there's really no temple of Brahma and no correct way to propitiate Brahma. Okay, so that is something. And what to donate if you have a Brihaspati Mahadasha or an Antartasha, and if that Jupiter is an operational malefic for you. So, what can you donate? Gold, if you can, of course, topaz, ruby, dal, grand dal, okay, turmeric, like I said, gur, brown sugar, and or yellow cloth, okay, a yellow sari to a woman, okay, and images chant Om Stream while giving it to her. That's Tara's beach. And Tara is the Mahavidya associated to Brihaspati. Okay. Now, appearance of Jupiter is obese. That's why we've seen many people with Jupiter on the ascendant on Lagna can be huge. Sagittarius people are huge, ruddy complexion, huge, okay? A very fair complexion. Jupiter on the ascendant makes you fair, like moon makes you pale and silvery. Um, a phlegmatic kind of constitution. This position is phlegmatic, okay, and also stout and robust body with this, right? Now, humors in parts of the body that Jupiter rules. It's very important to understand, because through Jupiter correction, you will be able to correct a lot of health issues. Jupiter rules the left ear. I have had experience with this because I had a Sagittarius fur baby, and he was suffering. He went through operation, and he had a huge tumor there. It was quite a traumatic thing for me, and he had this problematic Jupiter, and that left ear gets very badly targeted. Of course, phlegm related issues, okay, phlegm related issues, kidney related issues. So oftentimes wearing malachite really helps. Liver, lung, which we spoke about how Jupiter was responsible for coronavirus as well. Okay, lower vibration rays, or we can call it lower vibration. Who knows what corona is really out to accomplish, right? We can't just say lower vibration. Okay, thanks. So we've got liver, lungs. So again, keeping your lungs healthy is very important if you have a Jupiter Mahadasha or Antardasha. Okay. Now, thighs. Okay, even in the Western system, Jupiter rules the thighs. I mean, Sagittarius rules the thighs. Fat in the body, fat, all kinds of fat component is Jupiter. Brain as well, spleen as well. I had a client and she had a child. The child was having a spleen removed, and that Jupiter was extremely traumatized, not only in the Kundli chart but also in the D9 chart. It was, also you have to study D8 charts sometimes, because sometimes, Kundli and D9 charts are not enough. Ashtavarga charts also need to be studied. Other dashas, not just Vimshotri dasha. So this is something I've seen with Jupiter spleen, and that child had to have a spleen removed. God, how traumatic that was possibly. Kidney failures, tons of them. Jupiter. Okay, again, propitiating Jupiter will work. I've already shown you the yantra of Jupiter. And I've already told you two mantras in this video today that you can refer to always. Okay. Knees also, tongue and ears. So I just read, not recently, a few years ago, that if the doctor looks at your tongue, which we do in Ayurveda actually, they will be able to predict what kind of illnesses you have. So that is Jupiter, again, his association to higher studies, so association to medicine, again, the tongue, all right. Now, ailments that can happen with Jupiter, okay, diabetes, that, late age diabetes, jaundice, vertigo, gallbladder issues, anemia, different kinds of body pain, a sort of fiery body pain, because Jupiter is fiery, like I told you. So, sort of a fiery kind of inexplicable body pain that many people do get, okay, with Jupiter. Also, upset mentally. Okay, we know Mercury is, responsible for a lot of the mental stuff. So Saturn, so is Mars, I would say, but Jupiter as well, a different kind of. These are subtle nuances. As we work with, clients, as we work with ourselves, we understand subtle nuances. For instance, a body pain that comes through Saturn is bound to be different from a body pain that comes through Jupiter. So once you bring awareness to all of these issues, then you will see that you are better able to solve the problem and move on. Piles. Piles is a big thing. Stomach problems. We've been saying lungs and lung issues. In fact, Jupiterian people are extremely, hedonistic. So they tend to live it large. I think living it large is a pretty Jupiterian phrase. Okay, live it large. Jovial comes from Jupiter. So, there's also this thing with intoxicants, because after all, Jupiter also rules Pisces. So Jupiter related people, Jupiter heavy people are extremely, livid, large type of people, and they often tend to do things that will harm them ultimately. Okay. So this is a classic thing that I have observed with Jupiter people. If you overeat, you will have stomach problems, you will have piles. Okay, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out, right? Gas troubles, heartburns, those people who have extreme heartburns because of gas, Jupiter. Anemia, I already told you. Diseases of ears, I spoke about my cat, and the left ear is ruled by Jupiter, okay? Lungs, navel also. Have you heard of navel dropping? And I've had experience with someone whose navel had dropped. Okay, and that is again, that was attributed to Jupiter as well. So there's a really crazy things, giddiness, okay, fevers, right? Dyspepsia, when you're like burping and stuff like that, abscess of all kinds, okay, abscess, flatulence. I mentioned that hernia. Hernia operations are extremely painful, extremely painful. Okay, so that's something to think about. Eating correctly again ultimately comes down to intermittent fasting, but done correctly, okay, and staying in a sense of moderation, especially if you're a Jupiter heavy person, staying in a sense of moderation. Okay, now cerebral problems, cataract, oftentimes is Jupiter, carbuncles, adrenals, enlargement of organs. Yes, we've often seen in carnivals people, people were called freaks because they had some sort of enlarged, a leg or an enlarged arm or something like that. I think it was called elephantitis, if I'm not mistaken, elephantitis. And that is possibly because of Jupiter. Okay, all kinds of organ swelling, right? Also swooning. So back in Victorian London, women were wearing corsets so tight that they'd oftentimes swoon, and then they'd have to smell salts, and then they'd like, oh, I was just swooning, because my corset is so tight. Okay, you big Jupiter, and also this is my experience that people who have Jupiter in Cancer are never happy with their stomach. Okay, their stomach always seems to be a bit enlarged because Jupiter just can't help it. He enlarges things, right? He's so huge. He was almost a sun. He was about to be a sun, and then suddenly he became Jupiter and he became stationary at the outer end of the solar system to protect us from gas giants like Neptune. You don't believe me? Seriously, Google this up. I've got this really fascinating astronomical facts about Jupiter that is so correlative to astrology. It's mind boggling, So, that swooning. And what does Jupiter represent? Wisdom, of course, knowledge, higher knowledge, happiness, and pursuit of happiness. And having an abundance, okay, an abundant energy. What is abundance? Somebody asked me. And I think abundance is having so much that you want to share with others. This is a very important mindset about abundance, that we oftentimes think that, oh, abundance is having a Lamborghini, a Maserati, a penthouse in a very posh city like, New York or London or Paris or, what have you. All that is good, and if that is what your soul is so inclined to do it, but always remember that abundance can only be created, absolute abundance can only happen on earth if we are all abundant. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine not one person like Jeff Bezos owning, he just made 75 billion during this lockdown, and some of us have lost our jobs. So there is a lot of disparity in the world, come to think about it. But having abundance, and Jupiterian abundance, is sharing. That is why Jupiter in Alice Bailey's theosophical system is the sole ruler of Aquarius. It makes so much sense because if you don't share with your community, if you are not, supporting, and the world is now a global community. So if everybody is not abundant, how can I truly be abundant? Even if I have, I may be sitting in a five-star hotel. I may be, eating a absolute couture vegan burger, and I may think that I'm abundant, but am I? as long as there's someone hungry outside. So it's again this thought that of wanting to share your luck, your blessings with the world is Jupiterian, because it is sattvic, right? So it's an idealistic energy. Jupiter is not a very dreary. It's ever the optimist. Even in the Vedic system, it's ever the optimist. That's why he's guru, right? So always having plentiful, everybody having plentiful, everybody having enough, you know, that is Jupiter. So when you see a person and they are Jupiterian, you will see that they're spiritual, they're mystical, they are philosophical. There's a little bit of, drama and wit and humor and joie de vivre, like that jovial thing about them, right? Also dignity, right? Very dignified. Jupiter loves to express, so it's a planet of expression, right? Spiritual inclinations, higher wisdom, idealism, romanticism, that is not just, let's go out and bang, right? But a higher kind of romanticism where where love takes on a sort of, higher elevated energy, right? Jupiter is also sacrificed, by the way. So it's that deep Piscean energy. Can you think about it? I think that we made a mistake by giving Neptune the rulership of Pisces. It's actually very Jupiterian. And in the waters of Pisces, Jupiter is he's fiery. So he's brewing this kind of steam that gets things going, right? So if you want to learn the Vedas or the Shastras, if you remember mantras and you can chant mantras, then a Jupiter is exalted. Then you are a guru of sorts. In that 5 degrees of Cancer, your sidereal chart, if you have Jupiter, you are a guru like none other. I said it, I'll say it again, right? So this was a bit about Jupiter and his beach. Again, I will repeat. Om Grang Green Grong Sa Gurave Namaha. You can say Se is Sa or Sa. So Om Grang Green Grong Sa Gurave Namaha. And this, as I said, faced northeast on the hora of Jupiter, on the day of Jupiter, which is today. That's why, in spite of having a lot of work, I came live here, and I do intend to come live later on after I've completed all my work, to come and do fun videos like makeup and all of that stuff that people have been telling me to do. But I will try to do that. I can't promise. I've just got a lot of work. But thank you so much. May Jupiter bless you today. Thank you and speak soon. Bye.